Yes. Welcome, everybody. Cannabis News with Joe Klare. It is December 6th, 2018. Presented, as always, by the Marijuana Times. Check us out at marijuanatimes.org. Click that video tab for the show. Check out the great articles there as well. Today, we're talking about legalization of hemp, what that means for federal marijuana legalization, the federal legalization of hemp, what it means on a federal level for marijuana. Also, the governor of Indiana talks about medical marijuana and a new ruling out of Oklahoma and what it means for employees who test positive for cannabis. All of that is coming up. But first, of course, Cannabis News is brought to you by Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides, grow safe and poison-free. If you are a cannabis cultivator, don't use harmful chemicals. Don't use banned pesticides in the state that you are growing in. You do all of this just by going to Natureside. Check out nature-side.com, a proud sponsor of Cannabis News. Check them out. This first story by Julia Granowitz at marijuanatimes.org. Could legalizing hemp mean federal cannabis legalization is not far off? After months of debate, Congress has finally come to an agreement on fitting hemp legalization into their 2018 Farm Bill. The bill would allow farmers to grow industrial hemp, making the 2014 Farm Bill pilot program for hemp a permanent part of the agricultural bill. As you know, under the 2014 Farm Bill, many states have set up research pilot programs to grow hemp in many, many states. So like 40 or almost 40 now, or maybe it's over 40 now. I don't know. I didn't go in and count them. I know a lot of states are growing a ton of it, states like Colorado and Kentucky. And Julia asked in this article whether or not how that bodes for marijuana legalization. Normal Political Director Justin Streekel said for the first time in nearly 100 years, commercial hemp production will no longer be federally prohibited in the United States. This represents a significant and long overdue shift in U.S. policy. As for what this means for marijuana legalization, I would say that it's obviously good news. It's another step on a many-step journey. It gets politicians used to the idea that, well, maybe when we made the cannabis plant illegal, maybe it wasn't such a great thing. Obviously, there's some big differences between the hemp legalization and possible marijuana legalization on a federal level. One is obviously the mind-altering aspects and effects of marijuana. That's what prohibitionists cling to a lot. When they talk about not wanting to legalize marijuana, of course, that's not a line they can pull out with industrial hemp. So they're kind of lost there. The other big difference between hemp and marijuana on the political level is that marijuana legalization on the federal level doesn't have the powerful champion that industrial hemp does in the form of Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. He's one of my senators here in Kentucky. He's been at the forefront, very vocal, multiple times about what he feels about industrial hemp. He was instrumental in getting the 2014 Farm Bill to include the pilot programs. He was also instrumental in what is happening now. He pushed it and kept pushing it and would not let it go. And as I said, thousands of acres are being grown in Kentucky of industrial hemp, and Mitch McConnell has been a big, powerful champion using his power in the U.S. Senate to get this done. There's not someone like that backing federal marijuana law reform. Not that it's necessary, but, it would help. But it does. It's definitely a good sign overall that Congress even wants to think about and talk about and discuss and actually do something about some of these issues. I think the way things are changing in Congress, that marijuana legalization is close on a federal level. I'm not going to sit here and try to nail down a prediction. If I would have predicted state legalization back in 2009, I got to be honest, I've been way off. Way off. As I've said many times before, here and in print, when I started doing this, we talked about marijuana legalization as something that would happen in our lifetime, and we were very confident of that in our lifetime. And now here we are 9 years later, and I wouldn't be surprised if federal legalization came down sometime in the next few years. Maybe after Trump leaves office. Maybe it won't take Trump leaving office. I don't know. We'll see. Remains to be seen. Next story, WIBC.com. Feds need to act on medical marijuana before Indiana does. That's according to Indiana Governor Holcomb. Not a fan of the medical marijuana. We'll get to that in a second. Michigan legalized recreational marijuana last month, but Governor Holcomb says his opposition to loosening Indiana law hasn't changed. Senate Democrats have made medical marijuana one of their priorities for next year. Some Republican legislators also support it, but the idea still faces long odds of becoming law because of opposition from House Speaker Brian Bosma and from Governor Holcomb. The governor says marijuana remains against federal law. It says the various states defying that prohibition are setting up a confusing hodgepodge of laws. My favorite political term is hodgepodge. He says there's still no solid research to confirm supporters' claims of medical benefits. First of all, that is a total load of crap. I know advocates, when we go on and on about how research has been barred and blocked and all the roadblocks you have to go through, we contribute some to this, but the notion that there's been no studies on medical cannabis is just nuts. There's been over 20,000 studies on the cannabis plant. Should there be more? Should there be longer, better, more human trials, things of that nature? Absolutely. Absolutely. But to say that there's no evidence of the medical benefits of cannabis, that is a flat out lie. It's a total 100% complete falsehood. Holcomb says he's glad Surgeon General Jerome Adams, Indiana's former state health commissioner, has called for such research. Yeah, more research, that's fine. But calling for more research is not the same as saying, hey, there's been no research, because there has. Indiana's, for now, though, he says supporters are glossing over more compelling evidence from parents who say pot was a gateway drug for their kids. What evidence is that? What? Compelling? He says supporters are glossing over more compelling evidence from parents who say pot was a gateway drug for their kids. What evidence of that exists? Who are these parents? Is he talking about anecdotal evidence where some parents say, hey, my kid started on marijuana and therefore it's a gateway drug? But anyway, a couple things. First of all, staking out a position against medical marijuana, that's a pretty gutsy political move. In a lot of states, polls show that medical marijuana has a favorability of over 80%. I don't know what it is in Indiana. It's probably not 80%, but I bet it's over 50%. So it's a pretty gutsy move. Obviously, he's hiding behind federal law, as many politicians do, and say, well, there has to be a federalized change, and then we'll talk about it. But and this gateway drug notion it still persists, because most people who smoke crack smoked marijuana at some point before they started smoking crack. Most people who drink alcohol drink milk or soda pop at some point in their past before they started drinking alcohol. Does that mean alcoholism is triggered by drinking milk or Pepsi or Mountain Dew? Are they gateway drugs to the liquor? Are they gateway liquids? Of course not. It's stupid. It's like saying, a bunch of people who have died ate tomatoes, therefore tomatoes cause death. No. The first statement is true. The second statement is not. And this has been a long-standing myth because, like I said, you go into a room of 100 heroin addicts and say, how many of you, your first drug was marijuana, and 80 of them raise their hand. Of course they will, because it's the easiest and cheapest drug to get when you're younger, before you can, afford harder drugs and get access to harder drugs. Then, you say, turn around and say, well, that led them to marijuana. There's no correlation whatsoever. And in fact, most people who smoke marijuana on a regular basis never get on any other drugs and never try any other drugs. And if they do, they certainly don't use them on a regular basis. It's a myth. But Governor Holcomb of Indiana, big ups to your guts to taking a stand against medical marijuana. It's an odd issue. It's such an odd issue to really stake out, I'm a firm no on this. Sick people having the option of smoking some marijuana. No. They should not have that option. Oh, they're dying. They can't sleep. They can't keep down food. They're wasting away. No. I'm still a hard no on medical marijuana. That's a gutsy position to carve out. How it'll affect Governor Holcomb's future, I guess we'll see. I guess he has less to worry about in a state like Indiana than he would in, say, a state like California. Last story from InsuranceJournal.com, a very exciting sounding journal. Oklahoma ruling could set precedent for marijuana use in work comp cases. A recent Oklahoma court ruling that permits an injured worker to receive workers' compensation benefits with a positive drug test could set a precedent for such cases at a time when medical marijuana may soon be widely available in the state. State, of course, being Oklahoma. The Oklahoma Court of Civil Appeals ruled on November 16th that, quote, the presence of an intoxicating substance in the blood does not automatically mean that person is intoxicated. The decision comes as more than 13,000 residents have received medical marijuana licenses in the state since June. The case is from a 2017 accident at Berry Plastics Corporation. Employee Dylan Rose's hand was crushed when a coworker activated a machine Rose was trying to fix. A drug test after the accident showed that Rose had recently smoked marijuana, which called into question whether the accident was Rose's fault. We don't know the way they phrase it. I guess they mean, maybe his hand shouldn't have been in there. Maybe he was too high to know, or maybe he should have been quicker at pulling it out, and he was too high to react quickly. I don't know. Rose's coworker said he didn't appear impaired while on the job. Rose told an administrative law judge that he was no longer affected by the marijuana he had smoked the night before. As we've talked about before on this show, if you smoke a joint the night before, or 4 joints the night before, and then you go and sleep 7 or 8 hours, and you go to work the next day, you're not still affected by that marijuana. You're not still high. You smoke 12 blunts on Saturday night, and you go to work on Monday morning, you're not impaired in any way. But they will find THC in your system. I guarantee it. If you smoke 12 blunts on Sunday night or Saturday night, and then go to work on Monday morning, they're going to find THC, even though it's been, 36 hours since you smoked? It doesn't matter. But to say you're impaired is ridiculous. And hopefully this does set a precedent for workers' comp cases and the like. Thanks, everybody, for checking us out. Cannabis news, almost the end of another week. Keep spreading the truth about cannabis with marijuanatimes.org and this show. Thank you to NatureSide, nature-side.com, for their organic, all-natural pesticides and for sponsoring this show. Thank you all for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time right here on Cannabis News.